Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and today I unveil my first big free agency target. Ooh.
I'm very excited about that. My name is Arif Hassan. I'm from the Wide Left Substack, and I'm here to inform Luke Braun that the FBI has started investigating the Locked On Vikings Discord.
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, and that is probably for the best.
Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman, fry up the fish and chips and double doinks. We're going back to London.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party.
Welcome in to the Minnesota Football Party on Locked On Sports Minnesota. So glad you joined us every Monday, every Thursday, talking Vikings here on Locked On Sports Minnesota's YouTube channel, as well as the 24/7 YouTube live stream and Locked On Vikings audio feed wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find Luke Braun's daily Locked On Vikings shows. Also available, Amazon Fire, Roku, Sirius XM app, lots of ways to listen and watch. You met Luke's, you met Arif, I'm Sam. Welcome in. Off-season talkers, we're going to hit them hard today. We're wasting no time. Other teams can enjoy their playoff previews. We, however, are getting into the fun of free agency, fun of the draft. And yeah, maybe we'll talk about the playoffs when we get to our gambling segment. I have a harebrained, insane postseason gambling contest that we're going to do. But we're going to talk about Kirk Cousins' exit interview, Kwesi O'Connell's exit interview, Kevin O'Connell's exit interview, and plenty more.
Sounds like they all got fired.
Locker clean out. No, it sounds like they got fired too. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Luke Inman had the tease. Give us the breaking news, Luke. What's happening for the Minnesota Vikings?
Vikings, one of 4 teams to announce they will be playing overseas in London next year, 2024. And it will be a home game for the Vikings, unfortunately. So,
so that
they had like 9
evens it out.
Right? So, yeah.
They could have had the 9 and 7, though, like, because they had a road game in London that was, I mean, it was neutral site, basically, but they had, like, a good home crowd. Mm-hmm. Luke was there. Mm-hmm. And then 9 additional home games in 2022. That was sweet. Bummer, but that's all right. Good breaking news to start us off.
Yeah, Bears, Vikings, Jags, Panthers. There you go.
Oh, no, don't play the Jags.
No.
They would host their own
Jaguars
game.
also have a home game. Yeah, so those are the 4 listed home games, which the Jaguars do actually have a home game there. So that's
right. Bears, Vikes, Jags in London. Panthers headed to Munich, Germany. So,
dude, last year the Jaguars had back-to-back games in London.
Insane. What's up with the Jags?
They're
just trying so hard to get that team overseas. Yeah.
Kirk Cousins, Kevin O'Connell, and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah held their final press conferences of the year. There were laughs, there were cries, a lot of emotions. What do we take away from them? Because I think the Kirk Cousins presser probably made the most news in the way of, well, this could be the end for Kirk. This might be his final press conference. I thought that that makes it sound like he's dead. I keep making it sound like
it's that's exactly what it sounded like.
Vaguely threatening.
All right, let's start with Kirk, because I thought KOC Kwesi was a little bit of a nothing burger. But let's start with Kirk and Luke Braun. What'd you take away from Kirk Cousins talking about his future, structure over dollars, letting Mike McCartney do his job? What'd you take away?
So it all corroborates what Ben Gessling has reported about this whole situation with both Kirk and what Kwesi said about it, is that both parties want a return. Kirk wants to come back. Kwesi wants to bring Kirk back, but they both acknowledge, but it's a business and we got to make sure the contract works out for everybody. Right. So if they can come to an agreement, they will. There is none of this, Kirk secretly wants out, or the Vikings are going to leave him out, high and dry, or they're going to try. They're going to give it an honest shot to get a contract done. And the impasse is about 2025 guarantees. When Kirk Cousins handed that contract to Kwesi in the summer, that was the reason that the Vikings said, no, we're not going to sign this for you. We can guarantee you 2023. We can even guarantee you 2024, but we won't do 2025. So if Kirk Cousins, now that he's gotten hurt, is willing to accept only 1 year of guarantees, I bet that deal gets done. But if he's not, that becomes the sticking point, and that could be the thing that sinks this whole deal. And everything that they've said seems to pretty much align with that. So I'm going to guess that that's the situation, and we just kind of have to wait and see if somebody blinks.
Yeah, I thought that Kirk probably played that about as well as he could have. He did not seem attached to the Vikings at all to me. I thought he seemed like a guy who was open to every possibility. If I got to get my kids into a new kindergarten, tough, Cooper, tough. You like
That's life.
You like Mrs. Johnson, your teacher? Sorry, we'll move.
Hey,
if we
nap
have
time's
to.
over.
Look at Pat Jones over there. He had to go to a different school every 2 years. That's life sometimes.
Puffing you up, kid.
Man.
What'd you make of it, Luke Inman?
Oh, wow. He
Wow.
must not have liked
Scared
it.
This happens in an inordinate amount of times where Luke it's like his hand is on the trigger or like on the X button.
As soon as he gets a
saying
question he doesn't
talking.
like, he just pieces out.
Arif, you want to fill in the blanks? Can you do a Luke
Hey,
Inman?
this is what Luke Inman thinks. Jerry, you got to bring Kirk back. I just don't know if it gets done. I just don't know. It was a great year, but sometimes you just got to move on, you know?
It's pretty good. Pretty good.
It's not that great, but I
What
appreciate it.
the Jerry? Okay, impressionists only have one move, right? There's one move they do that connects them to the person. It's like a tick or an idiosyncrasy, and you nailed it. The Jerry.
My personally, Arif Hassan's impression is that Kirk is coming back. Now, I know that Kirk said a bunch of things that would suggest that he's not coming back. To me, these are ploys for negotiating leverage, right? For him to say stuff like, hey, the money kind of doesn't matter because I've made enough money at my life at this point. That's a thing that I think he genuinely believes and is refreshingly very grounded for a professional athlete. But, and him saying, the structure is what matters. That's always been the case. That's not new for Cousins. He's always wanted fully guaranteed deals. He's wanted multi-year deals. He wants contracts to show commitment to his place on the team, right? He has said this a lot of times. And given his history, I don't blame him. His whole football life has been being destabilized from a leadership position, right? So he doesn't start for his high school team, which is not a very impressive high school team, for a long time. He doesn't get recruited by any big teams until he connects with Michigan State's quarterbacks coach. That quarterbacks coach recruits him to Michigan State. That staff gets fired. He has no idea what he's going to do, right? So he goes to Michigan State. They recruit a couple of 5 stars instead of him. He has always been destabilized. He earns the starting job. He has to keep it. He goes to Washington as a 4th round pick when they've already drafted the 2nd overall pick. That owner never showed any confidence in him at all. After the You Like That game, Dan Snyder leaves the locker room. He actually walks right past Kirk Cousins celebrating a huge come from behind win, right? To go to the athletic training room to reassure Robert Griffin III that the starting job is in fact his. First thought Dan Snyder had, reassure Robert Griffin that the starting job, not to congratulate Kirk Cousins, not to celebrate the win. Doesn't even have to tell Kirk Cousins the starting job is going to be his. You don't have to do that. That it shouldn't be in your brain, actually. We should just celebrate the win, right? But the first thing he does is reassures Robert Griffin III that the starting job is his, right? His entire 2 consecutive franchise tags, his entire life, he's been given reason to believe that leadership doesn't believe in him, right? So I understand why he wants fully guaranteed deals. I understand why he wants a structure to reflect his leadership position on a team. And I understand we're at a point in the Vikings franchise where that's actually going to be very difficult to do because we're getting close for time to move on. But the Vikings want Kirk Cousins back. There's no question about that in my mind. As soon as he went down, Kevin O'Connell just said it out loud. Not a ton of coaches will do that because they don't have dispensation with the front office to say that. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah said after the season, right, in what you called the exit interview, that they want Kirk Cousins back. There's no question about that. And I think that Cousins is just saying, well, if you want me back, prove it. And I don't mean prove it by offering me a deal. I mean, prove it by giving me a deal that ensures that I am the starter. And I think no matter what the Vikings want to do in the draft, they're going to have Kirk Cousins as a starter for the 2024 season. And the structure will probably make it difficult to not make him a starter for the 2025 season. I'm comfortable with that. I mean, I don't want that, but I'm comfortable with that being the reality. So, yeah, I think Cousins is coming back. And I think the way that he talked about it, again, I didn't watch the thing, right? I'm reading articles. Most of the articles are pretty, I'm not going to say pessimistic, but pretty cautious about the idea that Cousins wants to come back. And I get it based off of the words that he said. But I think that the words that he said are part of that negotiating stance, right? And I think the Vikings will give him what he wants.
Yeah, and I thought he did a good job with that. Kwesi reiterated his desire to bring Kirk back in, I thought, an uneventful press conference, which is interesting because, Luke Braun, it feels like the devotion to Cousins has actually increased year over year. Like, you go into the first year and there's no strong commitments. Then after last year, yeah, the commitment is a little stronger. We like this guy. And now it's like, come back, please.
Yeah, we'll see. Actions speak louder than words, because
sounds good.
Ultimately, the commitment was not enough to get a deal done in the summer, even though they tried to, right? So, there is a gap in the line, as it were. So we'll see just how much they're willing to back that up. Again, it's, guarantees for 2 years from now. Do they want to commit to 2 years of Kirk Cousins? They're okay with 1. Can they be okay with 2, or is it a whole bunch of bluster? But I also think that, like, when you're in a contract negotiation, it's a naturally contentious thing, right? I want something from you, you want something from me, and those things might not align. So I think, being very positive and glowy and rosy about it in the media, I think is just part of keeping that amicable and just saying, hey, look, we respect that side. That side respects us. We aren't seeing eye to eye on this thing right now, but it's not. I think it's nice to have it not be a contentious thing, or at least not be publicly a contentious thing when you can put that out there.
Luke has yet to text us about, do you think he still thinks he's on air? He's just like talking.
Like, wow, everybody froze. What happened?
Yeah, I'll just keep
going. Let me tell you about Michael Penix Jr. Did either of you watch in its entirety the half an hour of KOC Kwesi filibuster?
Because I already told you I didn't.
I didn't enjoy it. I didn't know if that was applying beyond Kirk. Okay, you didn't.
Nope.
Good for you. Braun?
I did watch it, yeah, but I will be honest, I spaced out for a good portion of it.
Basically,
on
answer.
On a scale of any Jared Allen presser to Brian Robinson's retirement presser, how boring.
Do you remember the bit we did for the Brian Robinson retirement presser?
I vaguely remember.
So we started our podcast and we were acting as if the press conference was happening live, and we're like, well, let's check in with the press conference, and it was just starting. And then periodically throughout the 1 hour show, we would check it. We would do a Robinson press conference check-in, and it was always still going.
That's so good. That's so good.
And he was talking about like the pillars of being a Viking, and he had a whole 9-step like bulleted list. It was great. It was fantastic.
Talking about hunting and fishing in Minnesota and how like
his neighbors were there. He did a good 5 minutes on his neighbors.
I spur of the moment chose not to go that day, right? Like I was like, I should go to this retirement press. I've got a bunch of work to do, and I don't want to spend all that time driving. So I really lucked out.
Yeah, it was hilariously long. I miss Mike Zimmer for times like this. This was always like we're taking off the blinders. The scales are being removed from our eyes as we tell you the kind of the truth. Like we tell you what we really thought of the season.
Mm-hmm.
We actually level some like meaningful critiques, or we say, yeah, Tony Sperano dying really messed us up. Like stuff like that in the final presser is what I came to expect. And I got just a little bit too rose-colored glasses on the outlook. Like, yeah,
I mean, that's who KOC and
I
Kwesi
know.
Adofo-Mensah are, right?
I'm not
Like,
I'm not saying I just liked the alternative.
No,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
expecting it to ever change. I liked when we got some real, like, kind of honesty in the final press conference. And now it's like, let's pat ourselves on the back for another good year. Like, we're going to clap at the end of the day on the New York Stock Exchange, even if the Dow lost 400 points. But yeah, let's clap. Let's clap. Let's applaud. Let's pat ourselves on the back.
Remember after the 49ers playoff game, the very first thing that Mike Zimmer addressed were the rumors that after they win. It was actually after the win against New Orleans in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Where the first thing Mike Zimmer did, instead of like this incredible coaching job, right, with like Sendeo and Griffin and all these unusual spots and doing just a great job stopping Drew Brees, first thing he does in the presser is address the rumors that he's about to get fired. And he's like bitter, right? He's like, I don't know why you'd fire a 600 coach. And it's like, this dude rules. I love covering this guy.
We're so low on that kind of guy now.
Yeah, we just don't have that kind of guy. The Titans just fired one of those kinds of guys.
Yeah.
For
a whole bunch of
it looks like
little scheme nerds.
Yeah.
Good day to tune in to Locked On NFL. If you're on YouTube, you see the little bug in the corner, the suggestion, watch next. Locked On NFL might be a good day for that.
Suggested, yeah.
Belichick, Carroll, out in their respective places. Ron Johnson set to join in a moment here on the Minnesota Football Party. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. New Year's resolution time of year. You're trying to make these extreme resolutions, work out every day, and eat perfectly. Well, if you're trying to take a different approach to that, look into therapy. They'll help you find what you're already doing well, find your strengths, and you can make smaller incremental changes that have a chance to really stick. And if you want to try therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's totally online, which makes it convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. You fill out a brief questionnaire, you match with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge so that you are ultimately comfortable with the process. And it can be super helpful to talk to a professional about just your thoughts, your struggles, what you're doing well, what's making you happy, making you sad. Celebrate the progress that you're making. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. All right, Ron Johnson joins us now. He is on X or Twitter at 3Ron Johnson. Joins us every Thursday, and he hosts the Ron Johnson Show on Tuesdays. Ron, I mean, the offseason talker, it's going to be almost nauseating maybe for the next 2 months, but we're talking about the quarterback's future. He spoke to the media a couple days ago. He said that the structure means more than the money. When you hear that, what does that mean to you?
Well, structure is more important than the money. At the end of the day, I think he wants some security. And honestly, I'm not going to say he's looking for like a Russell Wilson type of deal. But I think that's going to be the key. Like, what happens if, injury wise, what happens if I re-injure my Achilles? What happens if I hurt my knee? As he gets older, like, this is the thing about the human body. He's compensating without realizing it now on that other leg. And you see this a lot. Not to say it's going to be his Achilles, but a lot of times when guys come off of one injury on one leg, the other leg gets overworked, and then they start to get weird twinges. Now, the great thing about quarterback is he's not running routes. He's not, exerting his body every single play. It's simple drop back type stuff. And so for Kirk Cousins, I think he's looking for that. He's looking for some type of comfort. And that also, he probably wants some type of way to say, well, if you draft a guy X, Y, and Z, or if you decide to move on from me, here's what my buyout, or if you cut me by June 1st, and all, like, a lot of that I think is going to be part of this. He doesn't want to just say, here's my 1-year deal, here's my guaranteed $20 million, and then let's move on. Or here's my 2-year deal, here's my guaranteed $40 million, let's move on. He wants to make sure the way it's structured, whether he has an option in the third year, if they do draft a guy in the first round, because I'm pretty sure they're going to have those conversations as well. They want to be honest, so when he comes back, he's not disgruntled. but it's going to be something in there with that too. Like, hey, we're going to draft a guy, or if we draft a guy, but he's not our guy, here's what we pay you at the age of 40 or 41. So I think that's part of it too. Like I don't think he wants to sign a 2-year deal and then be looking for a home again at 41, 42. He wants to say, hey, look, I'm willing to be your quarterback as long as you need me. I know my career is probably coming to an end at some point. So how can we make this work for both of us? And I think that's what he means in the language.
Inman, what do you got for Ron Johnson? Welcome back, by the way.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, guys. Really appreciate it. Ron, if they do bring back Kirk Cousins and, this team thinks they're truly a few pieces away from being really competitive again, what positions make the most sense to go attack in free agency with a veteran as opposed to the draft? And I guess what I'm asking is, which positions, in your opinion, are more likely to have instant success as a rookie versus which positions do you think, just in general, take more time to develop? And so maybe addressing those needs in free agency would just make more sense.
Offensive guard. Easy. If I'm looking at trying to solidify with veterans and not a rookie offensive guard, I will say Ed Ingram became a really good piece to that offensive line. I think Dalton Reisner is a really good piece. If Dalton Reisner is not the answer because he's a free agent, or maybe he is and they want to, try to work it out with him. His wife and her YouTube channel seems to like Minnesota. The Mall of America, she hasn't even experienced Lake Minnetonka yet. Like that's what I think she's excited for, is like, let's come back, babe, for the summer so I can vlog us out on Lake Minnetonka hanging out with the Greenways or something. So, I think, when you think about Dalton Reisner, that's a name in free agency that he knows the system. He worked well here. He fits what you're trying to do. I would definitely do that. I think receiver, you can find another one if you can't get KJ Osborne out of the draft. We just saw the kid from Ohio State decide to go back. Now, it would be absolutely nuts because I saw Dan Lanning just posted, I'm not going to Alabama. If you worried about your coach leaving, come to me. You saw Shadur Sanders recruiting kids to Colorado, and then you see Mbuka say he's going back to college. Marvin Harrison Jr. theoretically hasn't legally declined for the draft. So who knows what might happen?
Okay, Ron.
Just saying. Just saying. Like they're like, look, I'd rather be in college than with the Bears. I think that's what a lot of people are doing right now. So guys are willing to go back. Caleb Williams, like, do I have any more eligibility? Like, I might just go to Oregon or something. But when you look at the rookie situation, I would say offensive line is definitely a veteran spot. Mm-hmm. Maybe, I saw Saquon Barkley, but that money, there's no way the Vikings can afford Saquon Barkley. The way they want to pass the ball anyway, I think Ty Chandler's proven he can be your one back to get you 80 to 90 yards a game and hit 1,000 yards plus in the season with multiple touchdowns. So I think they have their answer there. So I would say offensive line over a rookie.
Give me one position on defense you think is maybe the easiest to transition.
Defensively, Ivan Pace kind of showed them the blueprint, but Jordan Hicks, I would say you have to get a veteran green dot guy in there. Ivan Pace can do it, but I would want to get like a Jordan Hicks back. I would want to maybe go after a disgruntled Eric Kendricks maybe, but he doesn't seem like he's working out in LA. It doesn't seem like he has, not say much left in the tank, but maybe his career's on the downside. I would look at some of these linebackers that might fit into your system. If Brian Flores is your D coordinator, that's going to be the answer too. It's like, are they going to stay a 4-3 or be a 3-4? And I think that's going to be the ultimate question when they start looking at what they need to get. Because if they do go 4-3, then you got to find a DN, whether it's Neil Hunter or somebody else, because you're going to need somebody to attack that edge. If it's a 3-4, I'd say you got to find a dynamic outside linebacker. So that's from a veteran standpoint, I would say. As far as drafting, I want to say corner, but I'm asking for too much. Like I'm like a kid at Christmas that doesn't have any rules. I'd say draft wise, there's a lot of corners out there. I like the kid from Penn State, of course, because he's from Detroit, shameless plug. But Kalen King, I think he could be a good piece, and he's tall, long. He kind of fits that, man-to-man system. When you think about Joey Porter Jr. coming out of Penn State and what he's done for Pittsburgh, Kalen King has a similar skill set.
Well, so actually that kind of touches on one of the things I wanted to ask about, right? Which is that there are probably a couple of positions where the Vikings might want to double dip, right? They get one in free agency as a starter. They get one pretty highly placed in the draft. And it feels like cornerback is one of those positions. It feels like edge rusher might be one of those positions.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of corners in this draft. I I don't know as much about the edge rusher position. Doesn't seem like it's as big this year as it has been other years, just in terms of the number of players, but that can always change, and the workouts matter there more than other positions. So we can always find out at the combine if there's some interesting additional guys to add to that list. But when it comes to, double dipping on these players, especially like those two positions I mentioned, what are kind of the considerations that need, like, is it different when you're double dipping in terms of who you're signing at corner, who you're drafting at corner, than it is if you're like, hey, I need to get my guy. I know that, if, like, for example, the Vikings sign Chase Young, or I know he's going to start, right? Does that change your approach if you're like, I need to get a guy in free agency and in the draft?
No, it doesn't, because so if you think about Joey Porter Jr., for instance, like he was a potential first round draft pick. He ends up dropping to the second round, but he dropped to a perfect spot. They're in the playoffs when you think about the Pittsburgh Steelers. But the biggest thing about cornerback, for instance, so if you were to go out and say, and I hate to do this, but Nate Wiggins out of Clemson, right now everybody's putting him up there, 4'4", 40, 6'2", 185 pounds. Clemson has like ruined me a little bit. Like when you think about Mackenzie Alexander, how long it took him to figure out what he would be, and then he became a true nickel. When you think about Andrew Booth Jr. and what he's, like, is it scheme or is it
Fields?
Is it scheme or is it athlete? So, Cooper DeJean, nothing against him, but we've only seen one white cornerback be successful in this league, which is Jason Sehorn. So, like, I know everybody.
I thought the Iowa kid was doing good this year.
Cooper DeJean?
That's him. Cooper DeJean.
That's him. That's who he's talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So Cooper DeJean, he's
you know how they say, like, don't scout the helmet, scout the player? Ron, I've got a new saying just for you.
I'm just saying. So Cooper DeJean, or Cooper DeJean, however you say it, everybody, when we played him, it was DeJean. So that's what the announcers were saying. That's what we said on the pregame show. So we're wrong. Sorry, Cooper, but he hasn't corrected anybody yet. But Cooper DeJean at 6'1", 210 pounds. One, he's a bigger framed kind of a kid, but he only runs a 4.52. So you're telling me at 4.52, like, because in the Big Ten, Minnesota, I think, is Iowa passed the ball like 10 times. So he wasn't tested. But in the NFL, you're going to have to chase Justin Jefferson if you are drafted as the number 2 cornerback in this draft. Now, to be the second caliber corner, they're saying he could be first or second round. To me, that feels more like hype over truth. Like if he's the other corner from Clemson, same thing. They have him a first round draft pick. They have another guy behind him from Alabama, Interior and Arnold. You got the kid, what's his name? Kool-Aid. A lot of these guys, they're throwing out there saying, Kool-Aid he's a first round draft pick. But here's the difference. It's all about how they run too. So Cooper DeJean might come out because he ran a punt back on the Gophers. So maybe he's faster, plays faster than his 40 says. But I'd be remiss to say, like, where does this kid fit in? Again, Jason Sehorn changed the game. Cooper DeJean might change the game. Like, they've already, like, I see the racial draft. Guys are already hoping he gets in. So they're like, we need a corner in the black versus white game.
Him because they're so out of corner.
Yeah, they were like, we don't have a corner, so you're in.
In there, man.
You're in.
You gotta say, hey, Riley Moss, come on down. I know you haven't started or played this year. Cooper, I know you're not even in the NFL yet. Come on down. We got to sign Eric Weddle, convert him back to corner,
They saw Cooper DeJean sitting on the sideline like Woody Harrelson, like, all right, man, I'll take him. Like, come on. Like, just let's play. But, so when you look at corner, and so to your answer, sorry to go off task, but when you look at double dipping, if I were to take a guy, let's say, I hate Clemson. I'm sorry, I can't do it. If I were to take a guy like Kool-Aid out of Alabama, 6'1", 195, and I'm saying, I know this kid can play. I've seen him play at the best of the best. I've seen him go against Michigan's receivers and do pretty well. But I know he's more like a Joey Porter Jr., where Joey Porter didn't start off. You guys remember, he didn't start the season off. He kind of came in the extra corner, and then he moved the other guy to nickel. Then as the season went on, you saw him play more and more and more and get comfortable. I would say that's a double dipping scenario. When you have a guy, but you don't want to baptize him by fire, I think that's the best way to double dip, when you can maybe go out and I don't even know, like, the corners out there right now because I haven't taken a look at the free agents. But when I look at a lot of these corners, but even like Kool-Aid, you got Cam Hart out of Notre Dame, like 6'2", 205, reminds me a little bit of what's his name that was with the Vikings, Xavier Rhodes, long, really gangly. But, none of these guys scream like, oh, we got it. This is Charles Woodson. All these guys just seem like, going to come in, could be serviceable, could be pretty good, but nobody really stands out right now like a Jalen Ramsey per se. And so that's why I'm just waiting to see a little bit more of this combine stuff, how these guys get when they get to work out and get tested. Again, a lot of these guys are young. I mean, there's some weird like juniors entering the draft that are COVID juniors. So it's a lot of weird stuff going on. So double dipping to me just feels like you go get a guy will play eventually, but you got to have a guy to start the season. And that's maybe where the Vikings are at.
So if we still have time, we might still talk about Michael Penix today. And that Washington offense is very much heave up a whole bunch of 50-50 balls, 70-30 balls to Odunze, and I forget the other guy's name, but those crazy good wide receivers. I don't know. What do you make of that Washington
like Polk
offense?
Or something, I think. Polk was the other name.
Jalen Polk and Jalen McMillan. McMillan was the other one.
You said what? Sorry.
What do you make of that Washington offense in terms of how all of those players will translate to the NFL?
Yeah, I think the receivers are fine. They remind me of Alabama. I'm sorry, LSU. When you think about Justin Jefferson and the way that offense ran with Joe Burrow, that's what it reminded me of. It reminded me of just the spread air attack. They had a lot of like plays left on the table where either the receiver ran the wrong route or the quarterback missed the throw. And that's up to, but just from the scheme, it looked like the receivers sometimes were running the wrong route because Michigan was trying to confuse them and showing quarters and dropping to like 3, which I've never seen that, or no, sorry, not even 3, press 1. So they went from like quarters to press 1, and then they went from 2 to press 1. And every time that slot receiver, that outside receiver that ran the switch was wide open, and Penix hit him once, but then 2 other times he threw it like it was a corner route, guy missed. I think the receivers are fine. I still question Penix. Like to me, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's maybe the way the coaches are teaching him. It just feels like sometimes his throw is more of that, like a 50-50 ball. Where in the NFL, that's going to be a knockdown or an interception, unless it's Justin Jefferson or your guys like T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. Like you're going to have your guys go get it. But then there's other receivers you do that with. It's a pick. And so, and the way these safeties and they confuse you and, they move around. So I think Penix is going to struggle a little bit until he gets with a coach that can really help him see the coverage. But the receivers, I think, are going to be fine. Those receivers honestly remind me of LSU. Now, again, they were coming wide open, so maybe it was Michigan's fault less than their ability, but they looked really good.
Yeah, we're going to keep talking about Penix a little bit later. Ron will host the Roundtable on Fridays. He also hosts the Ron Johnson Show on Tuesdays, appears with us every Thursday. Thanks so much for joining, Ron. We love your insight, man, and we'll hear from you on the Roundtable, all right? Appreciate it. And Cooper DeJean, run that 4-4, man. I would love to have you in Minnesota. You would fit in. Cooper DeJean. Or run a 4-5 or 4-6 so that the Vikings still can draft you in the 3rd round. That's another option. Be with a win. Flores would find a piece for him. Hey, find a place. Wild card. And you got your punt returner now. So perfect. Solved it. Yeah. Yep. Don't eat Brandon Powell. Thanks a lot, Ron. Appreciate it. We lost Luke Braun. Excellent. Let's keep going. All right. We're going to do back-to-back 4-minute drills after a word from what's that? After a word from partners. Today's show brought to you by Jase Medical. We like to, give you an escape from the real world and talk about sports, but the reality is that life can be unexpected. Pharmacies might run out of antibiotics like amoxicillin. Flu season is bad this year. That's kind of scary stuff. You might have kids. They might not be able to get a prescription fulfilled. There might be a supply chain shortage. It's all unpredictable. You want to have security, and that's great because Jase Medical, they're here for you. The Jase Case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others, stuff that could happen to anyone. Visit jasemedical.com. Complete your physician encounter, which will be reviewed by a board-certified physician. Your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jasemedical.com. Use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. jasemedical.com. Hey, Luke Braun's back. Awesome. Just in time for this.
Start the clock. It's time to execute the 4-minute drill.
Ron had the first minute. I want a minute each from each of you guys on Michael Penix Jr. Tell me why he's not Hendon Hooker. Start with Luke Inman. Let's go.
60 seconds. That's all I get. All right, here we go. The pros for Penix, first off the bat, one of the better arms in the entire class. That's always going to attract a lot of attention, quick release. And most of the time when he's got protection, some really special ball placement and touch, pushing the ball down the field vertically, which is always fun. People love the home run ball. Everyone loves the splash plays. He gives you that maybe as much as any other quarterback in the class has to offer when he's got the clean pocket. I think the big downsides, he's going to be 24 in May. Started out at Indiana where he flashed a little bit, couldn't stay healthy, 2 ACL injuries on the same knee, no less, dealt with some shoulder injuries as well. That could be a huge red flag for some teams and could take him off some boards entirely. We don't know yet the severity of what all that looks like. So because of the injuries, I think you're seeing he's a little bit more timid, a little bit more hesitant when scrambling outside the pocket, using his legs. And it's not that he's not athletic, but I think when it comes to the mobility stuff, guys like Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, even Drake May, they're going to offer you a little bit more upside in that department. So ultimately, end of the day, I think the medicals are going to be a huge sticking point for some of these teams.
Bron.
Yeah, the medicals are going to be a big thing. But beyond that, I think for me, accuracy is about consistency. There are some absolute seeds that are some of the coolest throws you've ever seen, but those only count for one. And when you miss as much as Penix misses, we saw it a lot in the national championship, guys that were the right throw and it was just off. That gives me a lot of hesitation, especially considering the age, right? It's just that much harder to teach an old dog new tricks. As for why he is inaccurate, there are a lot of mechanical issues that I think will need to be taken care of. So for me, I don't think you can throw a top 10 pick at Michael Penix and expect him to be your guy day one. He kind of needs some time to develop, which is pretty concerning for a guy who's already 24, not to mention the health issues of it all. I don't really see him as somebody I would take in the first round. He's more of a day two guy for me that fits more in the plan of a Vikings team that maybe committed to 2 years of Kirk Cousins and wants somebody else kind of waiting in the wings. That's more of a flyer that they didn't spend a lot on.
So he is Hendon Hooker, is what you're saying.
No, Hendon Hooker is a worse prospect for me.
No.
Also not a round one guy, as evidenced by the NFL draft.
Reef.
I don't have any saving grace for you here, Sam. I also am a little bit down on Michael Penix Jr. in the context of him being a first-round pick. The awkward thing, though, is if you draft him in the second round and commit to him being a developmental prospect, you have turned a 24-year-old quarterback into a long-term investment. Like, that's tough, right? Now you're hoping that he's ready by age 26 for his first NFL season. That's crazy. Daniil Hunter had like 7 seasons in the NFL by the time he turned 26. Like
100 games.
Yeah,
and you only get 2 years of his contract left as well. Then you got to make a decision.
Right, yeah, because he's a second round pick, right? So you don't have the contract runway for him. And like that's why, for example, Green Bay drafted Jordan Love in the first round. So they had that 5th-year option as part of their negotiating leverage when they did eventually end up extending him, right? So that's like kind of a tough place to be. I don't have a ton of new stuff to add. I will plug Luke Braun's piece over at the Wide Left Substack, wideleftpost.substack.com, about the mechanical issues that come with Michael Penix and why that might contribute to his inaccuracy. Now, mechanics are something
because he's a lefty. You are
yeah, it's lefty bias, right?
Well, I mean, okay, I don't think that actually plays zero role, right? I think it's really difficult to find a quarterback's coach that is equipped with training left-handed quarterbacks, which is why I think you see more mechanical degradation from left-handed quarterbacks than from right-handed quarterbacks, because it is harder to find a quarterback coach who is capable of flipping the mirror, right? It's just really tough to work from the ground up with some of those guys. And that's not Penix's fault, right? It's a structural issue. But I do think it contributes to why his mechanics aren't that great. You can flip it, like some people do that. They did it with Tua a couple of years ago. You can just flip the video around to do kind of a more naturalistic look at the way his mechanics have evolved. But it is an issue. And the thing is, mechanics are something that are purported to be fixed in the NFL, but very often they're not. You generally tend to have the ability to fix lower body mechanics a little bit better, which is a huge problem with Penix. But the upper body mechanics are an issue as well. And that is harder to fix. You know, we saw that with Tebow, right? And we saw that sometimes it's not worth fixing, like with Phillip Rivers, right? So that's the issue, right? And the problem is it doesn't really work for him like it did for Rivers because, like Luke said, he's inaccurate. He's inconsistent about his accuracy. He doesn't really know how to spray the ball efficiently. So that's an issue. And then you add on the fact that he's had like 4 injuries in 6 years or whatever it is, 4 of them like season ending, I think, right? With the shoulders and the ACLs. And then now people are saying, hey, the reason he's been inconsistent this year is because he's injured. That's not better. That's not better. Like, given who he is as a prospect, that's not better. If it was his first injury, I'd be like, okay, I get it. Maybe we'll go back and evaluate some previous, tape to see if something there. I don't think anything there.
That was the Andrew Booth thing. Andrew Booth said that he was encouraged by how he played throughout his career being injured.
And then after the draft, he said, this is the healthiest I've been since middle school. Not good.
No,
that's not. That is alarming to me. I know you think that's a positive. That's alarming to me. And that alarm has turned out to be well-founded. So that's the issue with Penix. I don't think it's a bad idea to draft him in the second round. I just think that there's something awkward with drafting him in the second round that doesn't exist for a lot of other second-round developmental prospects. So that is my concern.
All right, let's do one more of these.
Start the clock. It's time to execute the 4-minute drill.
I promised it in the open. We're going to get to it. Edge rushing targets. I've got mine. I'll give them to you right away. Wasting no time. The Vikings will pursue Bryce Huff. Not a household name.
He's extremely effective and efficient. I get, yeah.
Bryce Huff. This is a classic Kwesi. He is young, 25, entering his second contract. Underutilized, arguably. I mean, he popped in 2022 in a small role in his third year, and then given about a 500 snap role last year, second most efficient edge rusher in the NFL, 67 pressures in 334 pass rush snaps. I believe he would have to change to a 3-4 schematic change there, but young, underutilized, a lot of tread left on the tires, probably not going to break the bank. Bryce Huff is my target. Inman.
I like it.
Arif.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Okay, so I like that. I like that a lot. There's a lot of reasons to like Bryce Young. He's third in PFF win rate too. The thing is, transitioning from a rotational role to a full-time role always going to be really difficult to try and project. But like you said, that's a Kwesi move. Another Kwesi type move, although this is more of a Rick Spielman type move. I think that ideologically it's kind of similar. Chase Young going after former top picks, former first-round picks. I like Chase Young. That's why I mentioned him to Ron a little bit ago. Now his numbers aren't insane, right? He has a 15% win rate by PFF, which is pretty good, but it's not amazing. But I do think that someone as young as him, I think that he's 24 right now. I think that someone as young as him, someone with pure athleticism like his, which is incredible, is going to help. I think his lack of production over the last couple of years, plus the injury concern that he had in Washington, all of those are going to diminish his market value. The ability to get a number 1 overall pick with his athleticism, with the tread still left on his tires, I think it's going to be kind of tough. That artificial depression in his market is something that Kwesi likes to go after. It didn't work out for Marcus Davenport. It might work out here. By the way, I was going to make a joke here and say they should go after Marcus Davenport because PFF has not updated their free agent rankings yet. And so Marcus Davenport is the top edge rusher on the market for them. And he is technically a free agent right now. So that was kind of funny. But, I like Chase Young.
I like Chase Young a lot too.
Yeah, Chase Young would be fun. I had Huff written down as well as maybe the best bang for the buck, pure pass rusher that, like you said, Sam, checks all the boxes. I'll throw out another option, just somebody with a different skill set. Jonathan Greenard from Houston, 4th-year guy from Florida, 3rd-round pick in 2020, coming into his second contract. So, again, checks a lot of the Kwesi boxes. D'Amico Ryans really helped him bust out of his shell this year, turned him into a top 10 edge guy as a run defender, 9.3% run stop win rate. So, if you want a guy that can stop the run first and foremost, set the edge, hold his own at the point of attack, can't blitz on 3rd and long until you stop the run. Okay, all those cliches. He could be an option as well. And then as a pass rusher, definitely not on the same par of the guys like Huff or Chase Young. Doesn't have any elite skill set, but what I think makes him maybe a unique or good fit with Brian Flores is he's an athletic, high-energy guy. Kind of fits that same mold, what he's looking for. And, they'd send all this heat this year, this past year, the Vikings. Not enough guys were winning their one-on-one consistently, I would say. So I think he could help with that and just give some more opportunities when they are in those pass rushing situations. High-energy guy, plays through the whistle, high-effort kind of, type of player. I think I like the other two better, but I think just to throw out another name, he could be someone they look at as well.
Yeah. Ron.
Say Darius Smith.
Do it. We're all thinking it.
Sure. Yeah.
No,
I think the Vikings should try to go for the upper echelon. I think like Luke said, the pass rush was not good enough when it wasn't manufactured. One-on-ones, they just weren't winning enough. And look, there are some talented guys that are coming on, like Bryce Huff, like you said, like Josh Allen, but there is somebody coming into this free agent market that in his last 3 healthy seasons has had at least 75 pressures, been top 10 in all of those seasons. So he is still he's getting to the tail end of his athletic prime, but he's not out of it. And his idiot team is going to let him walk. The Vikings should just sign Danielle Hunter. I can't believe this guy's hitting free agency.
I hate you, dude. Dude, how many like Vikings or former Vikings are hitting free agents? You got Danielle Hunter, Marcus Davenport, Zadarius Smith, Unique Ngakoue. It's all there, man.
It's insane, man.
Yeah.
Let's get the gang together, dude.
Fabio Denabo.
What's Everson?
Yeah.
Doing?
DJ Wanham.
Yeah.
Dalvin Tomlinson, bring him back.
You got him.
Okay, but I mean,
right. Well, right. No, we know. Right.
But yeah, Brian Burns and Josh Allen are out there. Like, if you want to just like go for gold, right? It's
Jaguars. Let's go.
Yeah, they got guys out in free agency this year. Last year they did not have guys. They had Davenport.
No,
right?
Davenport was like the only serious player available in free agency.
This year they got guys. They got Chase Young, Josh Allen. They got. I mean, like the thing is, like the second tier here is a first tier in a lot of years, right? Because it's players like, Randy Gregory, right? Which is like, I mean, it's kind of fun to add, but I don't know if he's like a guy, right? But like, you got like Jadeveon Clowney and Bud Dupree, not guys that you want to like, as people found out, like revolve your pass rush around, but are like, hey, you could add that guy. That could help.
Here's the plan. Let's do this. We're going to make a video extra for the picks. Yes, we can. The episode is over. Go watch the picks. They will release over the weekend. Thank you. We love you. The Minnesota Football Party.